Welcome to another episode of the Office Altering Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. And if you're a first-time listener, hopefully you will become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions and creator of this revolutionary podcast. You can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. So we're going to dive right in today. Today's topic is about automating your client engagement process while reducing the client's need to think about it. That allows you to increase your conversion rates and ultimately your cash flow. My guest today is attorney Chris Dumm. Chris has been in practice since 1997 and has 3 offices in the works right now, one main office and 2 satellite office. I know many people that are interested in creating that. He has built a practice that is a workshop-based model and has an extraordinary team in the areas of estate planning, elder law, business exit planning, elder care and veterans benefits, probate and special needs, and of course, asset and wealth protection. So Chris, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you, Molly. I'd say I had great staff, and now, thanks to your help, they are extraordinary staff.
Great. I love working with your firm. Just so excellent. So I was so excited we were going through the 66-day law firm turnaround. And I think it was maybe in our first kickoff when we did our VIP session, you were talking to me about your process, and you shared to me about when you're in the conference room, how you've really streamlined and automated your client engagement process with having an iPad in there where the client signs on it automatically right there in the conference room. You handle payment right there in the conference room. And it just really blew my socks off because it's such a revolutionary way of handling, like most business owners handle their engagement process, whether you're buying a car, going to a gym, what have you. It's very customary and people expect it. And I'd love that you're doing this in a law firm. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you came to this idea and conception to deployment of automation and technology in the conference room?
Sure. So one of the things that I've told you, before, that I'm always thinking, first of all, what are the things that I don't like to do? Because I am the most expensive employee in the organization. So what are the things I don't like to do, and what are the things that can be done by others who are billing at a lower rate or costing the firm at a lower rate? And so I'm always pushing things to a lower common denominator, and I'm not being condescending. And we talk about that in our firm among employees. Everybody's equal, but we have different roles to play and different billing rates. And so we try to push things down. Now, I, for years, thought about how when you get a life insurance contract, all the important stuff is underneath what? The declarations page. And the declarations page is the only thing probably 90% of the time people look at, if not a higher percentage. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way for us to do our engagement letters, especially our engagements where it's almost always the same thing every time. We're just kind of changing out people's names and the type of fee that we're charging. So I tried to take all these engagement letters we had and we turned it into a engagement booklet. And then the client can have the engagement booklet, but the deck sheet, if you will, is kind of you put in the date, you put in the client's name, you check what it is that you are doing, and then and that's on the iPad. We've got the biggest iPad that they make, and I take notes on that. And then if the client decides to move forward, then I pull up this engagement sheet. I fill in that information just with the pencil, and then I scroll up to page number 2, and on page number 2, it says ACH, because we so far have been successful in not taking credit cards, because I don't want to have a 1, 2, or 3% partner in my law firm sucking off gross revenue. That's always kind of stuck in my craw. And so, but we found out that we were able to do automatic clearing house debits to our clients' checking account for like 25 cents a transaction. Well, I don't mind paying that, especially, and I don't mind asking for the client's routing number and their account number, because many of the times we're involved with collecting that information anyway. We're the attorney. By the time, if they decide to hire us, I don't mind, and I feel like I've never had a client mind giving us that kind of information. So we fill that in, and then I sign, the client signs, and they've just signed basically engagement agreement and permission for us to pull either a half of the fee or all the fee right there on that sheet, on the iPad. And then we have a client care program. And so we explain that and get permission right there to start pulling $40 a month or $50 a month or $100 a month, depending on which client care program they're on, right there. And we just agree on the dates of when it starts. And we've always done a client care program. And so it was great. We would send out the bills, and then all this money would come in. But when you increase prices, if you increase it by $60, I think what goes on in the client's mind is, is it really worth it, extra $60 or not? And I didn't want them to have that conversation. And so I wanted to go to a monthly billing to make it automatic, so it's easier for the client. And also, if you need to increase the fee by $60 one year, it's only $5 a month. And so I didn't think that barrier was there in the client's mind if there's a fee increase.
I wish you could see my note sheet right now. I'm feverishly writing. There's I think 3 major things that you said here, if not more, as we unpack this. So number one, just the technology, if you will, of setting this up. What I'm hearing from you is you need an iPad, you need some kind of DocuSign, you need some kind of ACH merchant services versus credit card. I love that you said that. I don't really need a 1 to 3% partner. And it really, truly, when you just break it down to that's extraordinary that you said that. And then you need your fee agreements and your engagement agreements loaded up, right?
Yes. So, I'll go into a get to know you meeting or a design meeting, and I now use I use an iPad. I use Apple products because that's what my kids use, and that's the only way I can communicate with them. Otherwise, I probably would be a Microsoft Surface person. But I go in with the large iPad. I pull up a app that looks like notebook paper, and I just take notes like I normally do. The cool thing is that I am a visual learner myself, so I can spend 2 hours with a client, and then at the next week's Monday all-staff meeting, they ask me, what did Mr. and Mrs. Jones say? And my answer is, who's Mr. and Mrs. Jones? But with this iPad, if I remember, I take my notes, and then I ask the clients, I say, hey, I'm a visual learner, and I found it really helps me remember the things that we talk about. If I take your picture and I just, lift up the iPad and I take their picture and it goes right into my notes. And then I can also turn around, and usually I'm trying to beat the client from doing this, which is taking a picture then of anything I've written on the whiteboard as well. And so from my notes, from the picture of the clients, and from the whiteboard picture, then all I have to do is just send that digitally usually I just send it to my practice manager, and then she knows who to assign that to, rather than you have a piece of paper and, gosh, I hope we remember to put this piece of paper in the folder. Difficult things like follow through, like remembering to give your notes to somebody. All I have to do is just remember to email it or, to my practice manager, and then the process that's my part of the process.
So you're really orchestrating it like an architect and doing an individual whiteboard where you can indicate what type of plan they chose and create a decision tree, for lack of a better term.
Yes. And so I send that to them, and we've recently changed our process where it's where I think we're going to have me exit the room or introduce a staff person who's going to be the handler for that case, because we've already been laying the groundwork that we plan as a team. And I'll hand off to whoever is maybe the funding coordinator or the drafting coordinator for this client. They'll explain things. I'll exit the room, and I believe they will probably, I'm looking at Gina, they're going to be the ones that do the fee agreement and explain the client care program and things like that. We decided Monday to change our process to that.
And your team is operating off of a set fee schedule, fee structure, so you're not mood billing in the room.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're getting me out of there, because first off, we think that we will be better at sticking to the fee schedule, and we also don't think that filling out the paperwork is necessarily an attorney's job. So it gets me out of there faster. I never want to cheapen the client's experience. I don't want the client to think that, like, sometimes when you go to the doctor and you're there for 2 hours and you see the doctor for 3 minutes because they're just running like they're from exam room to exam room to exam room. And I don't want people to ever feel like that's occurring. On the other hand, if we get to the point where the client's like, yeah, this is a team approach, and here's the other team member. Okay, Chris, we'll see you later. Thanks for hooking us up with this great team member. Well, then the sooner I can get out of that room, the better, because I can go do something else that is unique to my skill set.
And you're doing the handoff of introducing your team member that's coming in there. I always tell attorneys, have fun with it. And the clients love this when you communicate. You bring Gina in, for example, and say, okay, now Gina's going to handle the paperwork because my team doesn't let me touch it because I mess it up every single time I try to monkey with this computer or the calendar or database, and they laugh because 9 out of 10 of them can resonate with that because their grandchildren or children are helping them with technology. So they appreciate it. So you're setting the tone and the expectation, to use your example of the medical profession, where the nurse practitioner swoops in and they shake your hand and leave, and they don't tell you why they're leaving. So you're setting the tone, the expectation, communicating what role Gina plays, what role you play, because it is all a team approach and very much like a theater production. So it's great that you're able to do that and have fun with it and communicate with them why you're not handling the paperwork, right?
We do. And it is not unusual. It's unusual that I say this, but it's not unusual for me to say this, where I will talk to clients and I'll say, look, I've got a team. This person, is in charge of your funding, and these people do the drafting, and then I review it, and I explain that, and I say, because we can't all be good at everything. And they usually nod their heads. And I say, I said, I've been tested and I have certain strengths and there's things that I suck at. And what we've discovered from this testing is I suck at a lot. And then they start laughing. And I just think it makes you more, it's true, whether we want to admit it or not. We can't be all things to all people. We need community. We need team members, and we might as well build them up and say, but these guys are really good at this, and you're getting the best of the team in this area, and I'm out of here.
And they probably love that. They feel you're vulnerable and you're sharing that you're not superhuman, and they probably get such an appreciation for that.
Yeah, just spending time with me, you realize I'm not superhuman.
All right. I know there's a burning question for our attorney listeners here in regards to uploading the engagement agreement. I can't tell you how many law firms I talk to in this day and age in 2019, and they still spend so much time customizing fee agreements for every single client. How do you handle, I don't know, maybe you have 5, 6 different ones, whether it's an SNT, a base will, enhanced will, an RLT, whatever. How do you handle that piece of it?
Well, again, if you look at the life insurance industry, they have multiple products, and all that legalese and the special stuff is behind the deck page. And so that's the part that if you want to spend some extra time, if you can continue to upgrade those explanation sheets where you have the, hey, we're going to destroy your file in so many years. This is the process for conflict resolution. All those things that lawyers importantly think about or are concerned about. Why can't we put all that in the back and then just have that front deck sheet where we put in, we're doing this plan, or just be, now I think it also lends itself, the fact that my practice is limited to certain numbers of things, that lends itself to this model. If you were a general practitioner, this might be really difficult. You could still have, I think, a lot of general matters that always come up, like destruction of files and confidentiality and things like that are in the engagement booklet. And that's what it says on our deck sheet. We put in their name, we put in the package that they're doing, the fee, and then there's this note at the bottom that says, please see your engagement booklet for more information on our engagement, or words to that effect. Guess how many engagement booklets get read?
Maybe one from an engineer.
Bingo. An engineer or an engineer wannabe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll find your typos and they'll bring it to your attention so you can fix it.
Oh gosh, how great. Oh, so it's a lot of the software set up, the DocuSign that you set up mirroring the insurance agent industry will help you with how to export, upload, and set them up, correct?
Well, we are not using DocuSign. This is actually a PDF that's just on our, it's a PDF, and then they're just writing using the Apple Pencil. They're just signing their name where it says client sign here.
So you don't even need additional software. You're just paying for the whatever Adobe Writer or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
You're starting to get above my pay grade. You have to ask exactly how it works.
Yeah.
But I do know that it's there's no DocuSign to that. Now, the next phase where I don't think we're there yet, especially not in the states in which I practice. But once it's inevitable, I think that they being state legislatures will come up with some type of e-notarization. And when that happens, oh my gosh, we're all going to have to really rethink our practices, because there's really going to be a lot of pressure for us to be more efficient and do things, right now, I'm sure lots of attorneys do meetings with Skype. Of course, we've always done phone call meetings, but Skype or FaceTime. But now, you're going to be able to. I was last weekend. I was at a continuing education event, and a gentleman from one of my colleagues from Wisconsin said that they do witnesses that the state, if I understood him correctly, the state allowed 2 witnesses to be in the room as long as the iPad was in the room and the witnesses via, FaceTime or whatever, or Skype was watching the person sign. And I thought, wow, talk about taking more people out of the equation when you do a will signing. That would really free things up. I don't believe I can do that in the states in which I practice, but I'm going to be looking at that. And anyway, I'm kind of rambling.
No, well, it's interesting because next week on my podcast is going to be an attorney that is exactly doing that. She's actually doing, majority of her clients are choosing Zoom meetings because their out-of-state children can attend, which is very helpful for them, especially if you're dealing with the elderly. And number 2 is that they're actually having the clients go out and get it, the same thing that she said, the witness and the notary right now. So to your point, it's coming, and I'm actually going to be interviewing someone that has that exact process, and it just sprinkling and testing it out, and more and more and more clients are opting out for that because attorneys, old school methodology is you have to create all this value. You open up the hood, teaching them about spark plugs and everything else when all they care about is leather seats. And I spoke to an attorney this morning that their initial meeting, even before engagement, is 3 hours. I can't imagine that clients aren't banging their head against the wall, sitting there for 3 hours during that time where you're basically doing a one-on-one workshop.
Yeah, that's inefficient.
Yes. So I love that. You're exactly right. So your model that you're emulating right now, and when you mentioned where you practice, I'm sure there are some of our listeners like, oh, okay, this guy has to be from LA or some fancy state that is on the progressive learning. Tell us where you practice.
Well, it is pretty progressive here in the Midwest. In Joplin, Missouri is our base. The Joplin has a nighttime population of 55,000 and then a daytime population of about 255,000 because it's the banking, entertainment, retail center for about a 50-mile radius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I sometimes people say, well, you get away with that if you're in San Francisco, LA, what have you. But I just love that you're in Joplin, Missouri, and you have created such a, what I would call a cutting edge and on the scope of high tech in the estate planning arena for certain. So 2 questions I have. My first question is, how do you know off the top of your head, and maybe exact numbers right now in regards to how this impacted your conversion rate and or how the clients responded to this methodology of having the iPad in there, getting them to a place to sign versus reading line by line by line on the engagement agreement and having them input their ACH information right there in the conference room? What was the response?
The only negative would be, oh, this is new, which is hardly anything you want your clients to not think. I mean, trusts have been around for maybe 1,000 years or so, or hundreds of years. But I think what goes through a client's mind sometimes is, wow, if they're high tech, using this iPad, taking the picture, doing all this, just think what their legal skills must be. And we certainly do not try to disabuse them of that belief. I haven't had anybody, not want to sign on the iPad. I think most of them are used to in the physician offices as well as at the bank signing the electric screen, so it's not a new thing for them. I have had clients that are just say, well, I've always written checks. I want to write a check. I'm gonna write a check. And I'll say, well, you still need to sign here to get on our client care program. And we have some clients. We charge our clients more money if they pay us up front on our client care program to try to reward them to be on a monthly payment. And we have clients who are like, yep, that's what I want to do it. I want to pay you $50 more a year so I can pay on January instead of in increments for the next 12 months. So we allow them to do that.
Do you have any sense of any how this has impacted your overall conversion rate? Because when I hear you talking about the efficiency and hearing, wow, this is really new, I would assert that the follow-up rate, we all know how hard it is to get a client to make a phone call, to get them in the conference room, to get them to drive them to a place of some decision that works for them. And the second they leave your office with the mindset of, I need to think about this, what it takes to get them back in there to do anything. So are you noticing a lot less work on your team from a follow-up perspective and an increase in your closing ratio?
Well, I have to say that I don't know. It certainly hasn't hurt. I'm not sure if it's helped. If it has, I can't prove it because of our work with you, we're becoming more intentional on tracking our key performance indicators. I'm in a peer group, and we're moving in that situation or moving in that direction. So it's hard for me to say, yes, we've had a 63.7%, increase in our close ratio, but I can't help but think it's not helpful, because when once the client gets over the hump of saying, yes, we want to do this, and say, okay. And then I just exit out of one screen, exit and enter into another screen and say, okay, well, I just need to fill out this. I even say paperwork, but it's not paperwork because it's all on the iPad. And I fill it out and say, okay, this is what we're doing here. And then I just scroll down and say, you just need to sign right there. And they sign. So, and I think my program before, or my procedure before, was to, we want to move forward. Okay. Where is that paper? Where is that? Because we had the paper form of this. And so if the question is, do I think the closing goes up by having a pre-done engagement agreement, as opposed to, well, we'll mail you an engagement agreement in a day or a week or two, depending on when I get around to it, I don't see how it couldn't, because the person's made a decision. You want them to sign and give you money as soon as possible, because psychologically that, makes them commit to you, and they're sure not going to call another lawyer if they signed something and gave you money.
Indeed. I'll have to have Gina on maybe in 60 days from now and have her give us an update on some of your KPIs that she's been working so hard on.
Yeah, and she can tell you how it really works.
Yeah, like you
Chris
say.
Chris thinks it happens like this, but let me tell you. He's the worst.
All right. I know many people's heads are absolutely spinning this value bomb that you just added here outside of automating and streamlining in the conference room to get people to engage you just for initial service. Talk to us about your client care program. Some people use the term annual maintenance program, and moving to this model of monthly. So number one, getting them to sign up right there on the spot, and then getting them to move to a monthly, and why you charge them even more if they want to pay up front.
Because I want to reward someone for paying monthly because we want to level out our cash flow. Again, I over the last 2 years increased one of our client care programs substantially. I probably have just about doubled it in cost in 2 years because it was. I felt that it was, it was not making the money that it needed to be made. So I did that, and it didn't lose anybody. And I wanted to not. Well, that's not true. The second time I raised the price, I got a lot of people asking me about it. And I said, this is the last one. I'm not going to raise it for the next 5 years. But I'm thinking when I get out 5 years from now and I do want to raise the price, it's going to be a lot easier to say just $5 more or $3 more than it will be to say there's a $50 or $60 increase in this one-time fee. And then people, I know that in my own mind, when my Netflix went from $7.99 to $11.99 or $14.99, I didn't really think about it. But if I had to pay all that up front, I might say, wow, that's a significant increase. Maybe I want to look at Hulu. Maybe I want to do something differently. And so I don't want people to have that noise, if you will, in their mind. I'm sorry. Gina is shown. We can pause this, Gina, so I can say, okay, money has gone up 25% total revenue this year with 3 months to go. Because of the auto draft? Oh, from the life program. Yeah. So our client program, you may start over.
No, go. Okay. This is great. I love that. So, I love that. I know she heard you and she said, I'm not letting him not answer this question.
Yeah. So because of we were being more intentional of really getting the client care people on our client care program, which our price points are for like revocable trusts are like $40 a month. And then for irrevocable trusts and Medicaid planning, we charge, I believe, $99 a month. And I used to, I was an early adopter to client managed programs with the revocable trust because, hey, it's a revocable trust. You're living. You may want to make changes. You may want to put things in or out of the trust. This makes sense to do that. We've got 21 years of doing that, but I think around 2006, after the Tax Relief Act of 2005, and we started using irrevocable trusts more prevalently in our elder law practice, our clients, I viewed those irrevocable trusts as transactions. So I didn't even think about a client managed program until clients started asking us about, well, what if after a year or what after 6 months we want to call you, what's that like? And I remember the very first client that I was talking with, and I said, the light bulb went off. I was like, we have a maintenance program for revocable trusts. Sounds like we need one for irrevocable trusts. And the clients are like, yeah. I said, okay, well, we'll do that. In a year, in the meantime, we'll figure out how we're going to do this client care program. And they said, well, what's it going to cost? I said, I don't know. And they said, okay, we're good with that. So I said, I'm thinking it'll probably be around, $1,000, but you guys will be the guinea pigs, so it'll be less. And they said, that sounds great. And I had a staff member who he told me later, his mouth like dropped. He told me later, he's like, I can't believe you told the clients that you didn't know what they were going to get and what it was going to cost. And they were okay with that. And I said, well, we're friends. We have rapport. That's why it wasn't a problem. And they can always say no. So we have bumped around over the last 10 years, and now we actually have an official client care program for irrevocable trusts. and that what it includes, what it doesn't include. In our state of Missouri has passed some, I would say, liberalization of how difficult it is, or it's not really difficult anymore, or as difficult anymore to amend an irrevocable trust. One of my friends in St. Louis said, Chris, I don't even know if we have irrevocable trusts in Missouri anymore. It's so easy to amend these things. And he's, somewhat right. So, but there is a tax return that needs to be done. And we actually, do the tax return, and then and now we get paid for all the phone calls that were coming in anyway.
Yeah. So what was the percentage Gina came in? I want to circle back on that.
She said by going to a monthly and automatic draft model, our client care programs are bringing in 25% more than last year. Is that right? Yeah, 25% more this year than last year.
And there's no more annual bills, and you got to re-enroll them to why they're paying this bill. It's on auto draft until they say stop.
Right. I mean, we have a handful of clients who've been clients for 15 or 20 years, and they want to pay up front. And so we allow them to do that in January, but that's an anomaly. Then, every new client, they're not even told that they can do that. It's like, this is the way it is. Sign here. It's auto drafted. It's easy peasy.
Great. I'd love to know what percentage take you up. Do you know this in the conference room? So your experience in the conference room, do you have clients that say to you, what is this? What am I getting for this $40 a month? And have you go on a diatribe and give, through all the features, the benefits, what have you? What's your elevator speech around that when you have clients ask you?
Well, that's probably not as good as it should be. We start planting the seeds of the client maintenance programs or the client care programs in a workshop. That's one of the things I like about a workshop is there's economies of scale, and you can start explaining to people in a group setting your philosophy, what's important, what's not important. And we talk about, one of the things that's different is it's not just a one and done thing. We'll stay with you. We have a client care program. And then I have a slide that pops up with our, logos for those different client care programs. And I talk about the philosophy of why this is a great idea, because estate planning, financial planning is not a destination. It's not a destination. It's a journey, and it never stops. There's mileposts, but it's a journey. And so I'm planting the seeds that, hey, you're going to be talked to at some point about, whatever we do, there'll be a client care program, and we're not going to talk about it now because we don't know what we're going to do until you come in and meet with us. But we're going to be here to provide service for you so that we set it up correctly and it works when it needs to work. And then I guess you wanted me to talk about, my elevator speech. I suppose I say, I probably refer back to the workshop where I say, like we talked in the workshop, we have this program that I probably don't even really talk too much about it.
Do they run you through the ringer and ask you about when you get to that portion within the e-sign and say, okay, as we talked about in the workshop, what have you, here's the part about our client care program. It's only $40 a month, what have you. First payment will come out, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
On the first, how much do you give them the first month?
We have on our form, I'll just say, would you like this to come out on the 5th, the 15th, or the 25th of the month? And then they, usually say, we don't care. and so I put the 5th so I check the 5th, and sometimes they'll say, "Now, what does that include?" And we have a kind of a one sheet that lists all the benefits of that client care program. So if it's a revocable living trust, I'll say, "Look, we've been doing this for over 20 years. It includes this and that." I said, if you discover oil in your backyard and you have to call me because now you're worth $100 million. I said, from that point on, this program is not going to cover that. But I said, at that point, you will not care. And they laugh. If it's a irrevocable trust, sometimes it doesn't make sense for them to be on the client care program yet. But other times it makes sense for them to be on it from the get-go. And so if it fits, we talk about it. The advantage is this. The reason why the price point is around $1,000 a year is because of the tax return. And we're trying to drill that down, make it as efficient as possible so that we don't lose money on this. Because by and large, accounting firms don't want to do irrevocable trust tax returns anyway, and they will wait until the day before that tax return is due, and then they will all call me. I won't be able to return all their calls, and then I'll get blamed for why they all went on extension. I didn't want that to happen. So I said, we're going to increase our price and do the tax return. And then I gravitated to, we're going to do this client care program. I'm going to reduce my price a little bit, get people on the client care program immediately. And if they don't care about the client care program to do this correctly, then either they're not going to be our client or I can't care more about their plan than they do. So we'll send them a CYA letter.
Yeah. Two final questions about this. Number one, when I sign on the dotted line today, when does my first auto come out? Typically, do you give them any months for free, half the year?
Yeah.
So we're sitting here in October 2019. Am I going to pay in November 5th?
So the general rule is it starts the month after you sign your trust.
Okay, great.
If someone is, if I'm like, I really like this client, I really want them as a client, there's some other reason, that's an easy thing for me to discount, is to just say, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the first, 3 months, 6 months free on this, because at least I'm making them do what I want them to do, which is get on this client care program. But it's also rewarding them for, whatever reason my staff's always beating me up for discounting, as good staff should.
Well, it's not discounting. I wouldn't see it that way, but it's a value add that you have the discretion and the discernment to play with versus discounting your fees up front, which hits your monthly operating account versus this, which you ultimately use as your own bank, so to speak. So yeah, I think that's great if you give them 1 month. I have attorneys that will just, oh my goodness, the head trash and the mental exhaustion they go through of, well, it's October, I need to prorate it, and do I charge in 2020? And what I love about this, your monthly fee, is it's a no-brainer. You have the discretion to discount, and some you do, some you don't. And if it becomes an exception, that's fine. But when it becomes a norm, you have a team that's going to clobber you over the head about it, right?
Yes, with a velvet brick.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I cannot say enough. And what I love is you have literature there. You have a one-pager, you have a brochure, you have something to hand them where you can communicate that this isn't something that you're making up on the fly, so to speak, that it is a valid program. You can communicate that you've been doing it for 20 years, things of that nature. So already you're pre-selling it right from their very first interaction with you in the workshop.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that was a bonus I was not expecting, that I know many, many law firms really, really struggle with, hearing about the client care program today. So I can't thank you enough about that. The entrepreneur in me saying, man alive, you need to really package and resell this to attorneys across the country. It's a wonderful online program or value add program that you really could share with so many attorneys, because they struggle with that. They don't see the value themselves, so they trip on selling it in the conference room, number one. Number two, they overcomplicate it so much because of the upfront annual fee versus a monthly fee. And to your point, you don't think twice about paying Netflix $14.99 a month. The monthly model works.
I know millennials do, but they're probably not they're beneficiaries of my clients, but they're not clients yet. Although I am concerned about that. I'm very concerned about that.
All right. Well, I think that's a great stopping point for us, Chris. Thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing this extraordinary, well, really two models that you have really stepped into, 2019 with and beyond, and constantly revising and up-leveling in regards to automating your engagement process, which decreases your team's follow-up, I would assert, and also increases your closing rate while handling the annual maintenance program, which these are two of the biggest roadblocks and frustrations in law firms. So your knowledge has been absolutely extraordinary. Thank you for pulling back the curtain and showing us the ins and outs.
Well, you're very welcome.
Great. Okay, well, thanks for listening. And this has been another episode of Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. Thank you to attorney Chris Dumm from Joplin, Missouri, for joining us today and sharing about his revolutionary systems and process around streamlined automation that he implements in his very own law practice. Until next time.